Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today and attending our webinar on driver safety. I'll get started here just to be mindful of everybody's time. It's my pleasure to be speaking with you guys today. So to give you a bit of a background on what we'll be covering today, the session will be about 30 minutes, and I'll leave some time towards the end as well for some Q&A if you have any questions about anything. Happy to address them at that time. Additionally, this will be recorded, so if anyone wants to listen or hear it again or share it with any of their colleagues or anyone they think they might be interested, you're definitely more than welcome to do that. So I'll start off by introducing myself. I'm Natalie, and I'm a program director at TalentClick, and I've been a trainer and a consultant for a number of organizations in transportation, construction, forestry, oil and gas, hospitality, amongst others. And what I wanted to cover with you all today is a bit of this agenda here. So what we'll start off with is we'll do a really quick background on TalentClick for those of you who are kind of getting introduced to us for the first time. I'll talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, then I'll get into a bit more detail around the functionality of some of our tool and analytics. And we'll get into talking about our driver safety research study that we have in the works, and we've recently done a bit of an analysis on the data that we've collected. So I'll be sharing some of that information to you and also be inviting you all to participate in the study as well if you're interested. So the more participants we can get, the better. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well, about how you can get involved if you choose to do so. So starting off by talking about TalentClick. So who are we? At TalentClick, we actually work with a variety of different industries. And today we're actually going to be focusing predominantly on transportation. So we've actually helped a number of organizations, and really our goal in helping the various organizations that we do is to help them reduce the negative events in their organization, such as incidents, injuries, turnover, theft, with their poor hiring decisions, and just generally increasing the positive events in their organization, such as improving their safety culture, employee satisfaction, employee engagement, productivity, and much more. And the reason we do this is we're helping them address these major problems that they're having in their organization. And we do this because what we know is that 1 out of 4 drivers is actually deemed as being higher risk. Now what that means is that 1 out of 4 drivers is more likely to be involved in a collision, a road rage incident, and violation of road rules. And I'm going to say over 90% of the time, it's due to human factors such as distractibility, poor attention, errors in judgment. So think about all those times that you yourself as a driver on the road might have had a close call. So either way, there's always that human element that comes into play. So knowing these stats and knowing these specific details about ourselves and our workforce can be huge for reducing risk on the road. So here are some statistics on screen that I'll just display for you guys. As you can see, human error, human factors, that's a primary cause there. And when we're looking at the primary human factors, they're often things to do with recognition errors, inattention, unsafe driving decisions, and so forth. So here's just some statistics I'll show up on screen here as well. As you can see, so think about this. Every 2 miles, the average driver makes about 400 observations, 40 decisions, and 1 mistake. Once every 500 miles, one of those mistakes leads to a near collision. And every 61,000 miles, one of those mistakes leads to a crash. So to mitigate the risk of a bad hire, in the past, we tended to focus solely on background checks, reference checks, and those are wonderful pieces of information. Don't get me wrong. I definitely encourage you all, if you're already doing that, wonderful, keep doing that. But focusing merely on those pieces of information alone, it's kind of like driving by only looking into the rear view mirror. And this is often what we deal with in organizations. We help them determine, okay, what is a driver, an operator likely going to be like on the job. So we help them with that predictive element. So there's that additional piece of information that you have on that candidate, in addition to knowing about their history and what they did in the past. Using predictive analytics can let you know a little something about, okay, what's this person likely going to be like when they're driving for long stretches on the road and they're not necessarily supervised. So what are their natural default settings? What do they tend to revert back to when they're comfortable, or say once they've passed the probationary period? And so it's for that reason specifically that we've seen a huge increase in the use of predictive analytics. Predominantly in the field of transportation, we've seen a huge increase there over the past few years in helping them reduce risk in the workplace. So that's also why you see more and more Fortune 500 companies that are really seeing the value behind these tools and assessments. So how do we measure personality and behavioral risk? Well, some of you might have taken the assessment before taking today's webinar, so it's a very similar process to what you experienced before attending. But to give you a bit of a background, participating in this type of assessment is really all it takes is completing an online assessment questionnaire, which takes about 10 to 15 minutes to do. You can take it in a variety of different languages, and once you complete the assessment, we actually have the capacity to generate a body of different types of assessments, whether it's a general safety assessment, a work style assessment, a work values assessment, and of course an assessment that's specific to drivers. So this is actually the one that we're going to be focusing on most today and that we're going to be elaborating on. We're going to be talking about the driver safety assessment and in specific. And so what's great about the driver safety assessment, in addition to some of the other ones as well, is that once someone goes through the questionnaire, 2 versions of the report are actually generated. So first, there's an employer version, which of course, as states the name, is intended for the employer. So whether you're in HR, you're a hiring manager, you're a supervisor, this report is intended for those individuals. And what it has within it is it tells the employer, okay, what are the strengths that this candidate has? What are some of the potential risks that might be associated with this candidate, given how they're scoring and whatnot? What are their safety risks? I mean, we've all got them at the end of the day, but really being able to identify specifically what those are. And then on top of that, the managers have tips and tools as to how to manage, guide, and coach individuals through those safety risks. On top of that, if you're looking to use this tool as a recruitment, in your recruitment process or during your onboarding process, there's custom interview questions in those reports as well, which help you guide and navigate the interview process. So that's great for the employer. The second piece that it gets generated when someone goes through the questionnaire is the participant report. Now, the participant report, this is definitely something that's optional for the organization. If you choose to share this with the candidate, you definitely can. We can make it so that the candidate's getting it automatically, or we can shut off this feature for you if you'd like as well. It's definitely up to your own personal preference what you'd prefer to do. But what this gives the candidate is it just gives them really good insight into themselves. So they get a better feel for what their strengths are as a driver or operator, and it gives them an insight into what their own personal risks are, so that they can kind of self-check themselves and self-monitor themselves on an ongoing basis to monitor those risks. What's nice about that is that there's also an action plan in there. So it gets them to see how the way that they're naturally hardwired might affect their propensity towards risk on the job, so that they can devise an action plan as to how they're going to address and mitigate those risks going forward. So yeah, that's a great tool as well to be used between supervisors and the workers. So to give you guys a bit of an insight into some of the findings that we found through doing this, the research study that we've done in the transportation industry, is that we actually got, last year, we got a bunch of organizations on board to help us essentially link personality characteristics to driver behaviors. So we were looking at their safety outcomes, and we were evaluating at-fault collisions, moving violations, property damage, injuries, fatalities, and we were linking this incident data to people's personality scores on the driver safety assessment that they were taking. Our goal in doing this study was really to provide organizations with intelligence around what did their safest drivers look like, so that not only could they continue hiring top performing drivers and operators, but so that they could also implement training practices or update or improve their current training practices so that they could develop more top performers. So we really just wanted to get more forward-thinking transportation industries on board for this project, and see, okay, how could we work together to help you guys reduce the risks in your workplace. And so here's an example of some of the transportation companies that did participate. We're trying to get our participation numbers up. So the data I'm about to present to you guys is reflective of a smaller sample size. We're hoping to get that sample size up. But based on the findings of the research that we've done from these key organizations, is that we observed a very strong link between personality and things like violations, crashes, equipment damage, and also we were able to correlate that with telematics data as well. And what that really yielded to is we found something pretty interesting out. We found that in this study, job performance ratings did not actually seem to have a correlation with how they performed. So someone's driving record didn't correlate with the performance rating that they received from their supervisors, because most supervisors rated the drivers as 4s or 5s out of 5 regardless of their incident history. So that was something interesting that we saw. Another thing that we saw is that the ideal profile for drivers seem to correlate with some of the dimensions that we measure in our driver safety quotient, which was the candidates who were more rule following had lower incident rates. Same with people who were highly focused and were cautious as well. So these were some of the key characteristics that we saw showed a strong correlation between incident rates. So to summarize the findings for you guys a little bit, what we found is that drivers with a high score on distractibility had 3.9 times higher a rate of violations. So almost 4 times more violations than someone who scored more on the focus side. So that's where we saw the strong link there between someone's high distractibility score and the number of traffic tickets that they received. Spontaneous, that's also a scale that we measured, and what we found is that drivers who had a high score on spontaneous, so people who scored more on the left side of that scale, closer to the spontaneous side, had 7.7 times higher traffic violations as well. So they were receiving quite a few traffic tickets as a result of being higher on the spontaneous side. With at-fault crashes, we saw a strong link with that type of incident and personality types that were more rule resistant and also impulsive. As you can see here, individuals who scored more on the rule resistant side and on the impulsive side were over 50%, had over 50% more crash rates than people who scored on the opposite sides of those scales. So people who are more on the accommodating side or people who are more on the cautious side. Damage to equipment or machinery. So that type of incident seemed to be strongly linked to the personality type of being highly distractible or highly impulsive. So applying these findings, we provided these organizations that participated with in-depth reports and analyses on, okay, this is the breakdown, these are the findings on your workforce. And so with this information, this can actually help you ideal the top profile when you're screening candidates during the hiring process. Another thing you can do is, like I said a little earlier, it could help you with your current training and development practices so that you can be proactive during the onboarding phase to equip your newer workers with this knowledge. With regards to employee development, this could also definitely be used post-incident. So once an individual gets involved in an incident, getting them to do the assessment and then going through the results with them and getting them to do the self-action plan alongside their supervisors. And that's a great way to be proactive about mitigating future and potential risks. So with that said, and the findings presented, I'd love to invite all the attendees here today to participate in the research study. Participation, as you'll see, is really incremental to supporting industries like in transportation and organizations just like yours. Participation in the study requires, we'd like to have employees with at least 3 months on the job experience to participate. And so we're actually looking for a variety of participants in different types of companies. Of course, specific to transportation, but we want a range of people in different geographic regions, different backgrounds, different age brackets, gender. But our key requirement here is that they've been with your organization for at least 3 months, just so that you have some sort of data and tracking on them, whether it's performance ratings or any type of incident data, no matter how minor or severe it might be. Any kind of data you can provide us on those drivers would be wonderful. So participation doesn't really take very much. We would ask the drivers in your organization to participate in a brief 10 to 15 minute questionnaire. And once they do that, we would like to ask that your organization, maybe at the end of the 3-month mark, provide us with data on these individuals. So some information that you might have on their driver history and some optional data that we would request, if you do have it, which would definitely contribute to making the data more rich and meaningful, is any kind of telematics data that you might have as well. And of course, job performance ratings as well would also be useful. So if you guys could essentially give us a summary as to, okay, assessing your top performers, your average performers, and your lower performers, this could really help generate even better intelligence for your company. So what will you receive upon participation? So you will have your own white paper and research study on your organizations. So you'll be able to make specific summaries on your organization, linking specific personality traits to specific types of incidents. We'll also be able to provide you guys with benchmarks. So if you've got different types of roles, we'll be able to identify what the top performers are for your specific role. So in this example here that you're seeing on screen, this is reflective of short haul versus long haul. So you'll see that the orange line here is an orange benchmark for the ideal score range of a short haul driver, and the blue one is the ideal score range for a long haul driver. And I just want to preface saying that this is just an example, and this is specific to a particular organization that we've worked with, but we can make this custom to your organization as well. We provide you with really great group analytics on your organization, so giving you an insight and almost like an x-ray into your teams and your organization, and helping you identify where do the majority of your workers and drivers cluster. And really this is to help you increase the positive outcomes in your organization. So reducing things like turnover, improving the quality of your hires, reducing incident rates, at the end of the day, really just helping you save time, money, and lives. So the key takeaways from today's session, we've seen the strong impact that personality has on job fit and someone's propensity towards risk. We've seen how personality is really, in fact, measurable and predictable of someone's future behaviors, and measuring that is really fast, easy, and also affordable. So here on screen is just a customer success rate, a net performer score that we've received from the customers that we've been working with to date. And I'd like to extend a special offer to all of you today for attending today's session. Thank you all for attending today's session. And I just want to let you know that if you're interested in participating in the study, great. The first month of participation will give you 1 month unlimited use for your workers and drivers, and there's no strings attached there, so 1 month free. And then if you continue to use the assessment, the rates of the assessment would be a fixed monthly rate, which would vary based on the size of your organization. So the number of employees that you have in your organization, there would be a fixed monthly rate for that. So that really sums it up for what I wanted to cover with you all today. We do have just a few minutes left for questions, which is wonderful. So please feel free to type up your questions in the question box there. I'm already seeing quite a few questions that are coming up, which is great. So keep those questions coming. So first question we have here is what do you get for participating in the study? So really good question. So what you get from participating in the study is you'll get your own report on your organization. So we'll do an analysis, we'll give you benchmarks on what top performers would look like, and we would give you recommendations for your future hiring practices in addition to your training and development practices as well. And of course, as mentioned before, you also get a free month of unlimited use. So 30 days of free use of the assessment tool. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so what is involved in participating in the study? So participation in the study is pretty simple. We'd like to ask you all to extend the invite to all of your drivers and operators who have been with your organization for at least 3 months. And their participation involves completing a 10 to 15 minute questionnaire online. And they can do that questionnaire online, whether it's on a computer, on a smartphone, and on a tablet. And they can actually get the participant report after participating. So that's a nice takeaway for them. It's a great self-awareness tool into themselves. Their supervisor can also get the employer version, and at the end of the 3-month mark, once we've got all the data and all the participants in the study, we would at that point then be providing the key administrator with some business intelligence. So whether it's benchmarking on their top performers, whether it's analysis on the types of incident rates correlated to different personality dimensions that we measure, we would be providing you guys with that wonderful data in a white paper on your organization as well. So, okay, wonderful. Next question. Who do I contact to participate? You can contact me to participate in that study. So my information is on screen, so feel free to reach out by phone or email, and we'll get you set up to participate in the study. Okay, what does it cost to participate? So the first month of participation is free, but then after that, prices would vary based on the size of employees you have in your organization, so based on organizational size. And you can contact me for a quote on that. I'm happy to provide you with that quote. Any other questions from anybody? Looks like I have a few more here. Languages. So yes, we do have the assessment offered in 15 different languages, which is wonderful. And I have a specific question here about, is it offered in Spanish or Punjabi? Yes, we do have it in both of those languages. We have it in Spanish, Punjabi, Portuguese, Russian, Arabic, Chinese, so a variety of different languages. So if you're curious about learning more about the specific languages that we offer the assessment in, please get in touch with me, and I'll be sure to provide you with more details and information on and participating. Okay, do we have any more questions? Thank you all very much for your participation today and for attending this webinar. I hope you learned something great, and we really look forward to gaining your participation in the study. Thanks again, and have a wonderful afternoon.